Hi there, I'm Jen, and this is going to be my 2020 favorites video. However, unlike most years, I didn't have really extreme highs or lows in my reading this year. I read a lot of things that were very good, but that I don't know that I would call my absolute favorites. They're things that I would recommend to people if they are looking for recommendations of very specific things, but not necessarily things that I just adored. I also didn't read enough things that I hated to have a fun worst list. But I do have 5 books that I bought despite having read, in a couple of cases from the library, in one case from NetGalley, and in another case because I had read some of the content that it compiles previously, but that I still absolutely wanted to own. So I think these become favorites because if I was willing to buy them, they must be favorites. So this is my top 5 that are books that I read this year from free sources that I did feel compelled to buy. So the novel that falls into this category was Carolina de Robertis' Cantoras, a story that stretches through the 70s and 80s with a little bit of an epilogue in the almost current day, following the lives of 5 queer women in Uruguay during a time of dictatorship. This was a book that I had out of the library and it returned itself. I was reading the ebook and I was so engaged in it that I immediately went out and bought it so that I could finish it immediately because I was that driven to find out what happened. And that is rarely an experience that I have. I let a lot of books return themselves and I just patiently wait. So I really enjoyed that. I accidentally deleted the video where I talked about this, which is a shame because I had some funny reactions to other people when I told them about how much I enjoyed this. A lot of people assumed that it would be a much more depressing story than it is, which is not to say that there aren't depressing elements. I think given just the general description, you could guess that the bulk of this is not going to be super uplifting, but it is actually more uplifting than most of the things that I read are. That's something. In the category of popular nonfiction, my favorite have to be Disability Visibility, which is edited by Alice Wong. If you don't follow Alice Wong on social media, you absolutely should because she curates such a fantastic feed of kind of disability news and disability culture pieces across social media. Her podcast is great, her website is great, her Twitter feed, it's all fantastic stuff. This is a collection of essays by a variety of people from a variety of backgrounds with a variety of experiences of disability and just serves as a great introductory piece. This is a book that I had to buy because I want to lend this to people because I think it is doing something that I haven't seen a good book of this type in 20 years, and the books that I would have suggested that are from back then don't have as much variety to the authors, both in terms of generation but also specific experiences of disability and also just generally cultural and generational differences as well. This is a really great introductory piece and something I'm absolutely going to be lending people. And it opens with the late Harriet McBride Johnson essay where she has dinner with Peter Singer and talks about his eugenics views, which is from a number of years ago but still packs a punch. In terms of more academic nonfiction, I picked up From Shamanism to Sufism, Women, Islam and Culture in Central Asia by Razia Sultanova. The author is an ethnomusicologist who specializes in primarily religious music as performed by women in Uzbekistan, although also in some other countries. And she weaves a really interesting portrait of how both the evolution of religious music, the role of women in it, even the shift from Tengrism to Islam, and the whole bulk of history, and it has a fantastic reference section, which is the main reason I felt like I needed to buy this, because it was definitely one of the most educational things that I read this year, so it definitely made me aware of a number of subject areas that I don't know nearly enough about, so I appreciated that. In poetry, my favorite was A Fortune for Your Disaster by Hanif Abdurraqib. I listened to the audiobook of this during the summer, and it's exactly the kind of non-standard stream of consciousness type poetry that I generally like, but this had some particular references to everything from dogs to pop culture to bacon that just had a certain resonance for me that I rarely see. There's one poem in here that is called With Boxes Piled at the Foot of the Stairs, I Go to See Logan. And it is about going to see the movie Logan in an empty cinema during the day while one is in an emotional state, which is something that I actually did. And so reading that was kind of surreal because it's like, that is a very specific experience to for him to write a poem about that I was like, oh yeah. It made me wonder how common that experience was. There are also recurring poems in here that are called The Prestige, based on the movie of that name. There are numerous poems in here that are called How Can Black People Write About Flowers at a Time Like This? There are numerous poems in here that are The Ghost of Marvin Gaye, and then a sentence in which the ghost of Marvin Gaye does something. And just the use of recurring references like that, and this is just great. And finally, the comic book that I had to pick up was the Master Chocolatier. I read the English translation of this through NetGalley, and I had never heard of this series before. It was localized by Europe Comics, who do a lot of translations of both Franco-Belgian but other comics from the rest of Europe as well. This is a series that's a bit of a personal drama, work drama, and also organized crime thriller combined together. We have a chocolatier. He's going out on his own in business. He has some issues with the women in his life, and he's getting his funding from a friend who is involved in organized crime. And the art in this book is just wonderful. It has, like, there are the sequences of chocolate making. There's the sequences of him getting on the metro, of him walking through the Grand Place. This has, I think, one of the best visual depictions of sign language in a comic that I've ever seen, even compared to like the Fraction and Aya run on Hawkeye or A Silent Voice. I forget who the author of A Silent Voice is, but I think those are the two people who usually talk about, but this deserves to be talked about for that as well, because I thought the illustration of motion in that was really well done. This is just a beautiful book. And so even though I had an electronic copy from NetGalley, I thought I need to own that in the physical form because the art deserves to be seen in that format. And so those are my 5. I think this is less interesting and shorter than the videos that I usually do for this kind of thing, but 2020 was a weird year, so this is just the metric that I'm using. Did I buy the book that I read without having needed to buy it? That's how this works out. In any case, I'd love to know, did you have a challenging time figuring out your favorites this year? And do you regularly buy books that you previously got out of the library or have read advanced copies of? I'd love to know. Anyway, that's it for now. Ciao.